Hey guys, my name is Brandon and welcome to or welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you like what you see in here, you're more than welcome to hit the subscribe button so you stay notified every time I upload a new video. Okay, let's get straight on with today's video. Hey everyone and welcome back to Is That More Brandon. So in today's video I'm going to be doing a review for episode 8 of I'm a Celebrity 2024. So at the beginning of the episode, Jane was happy that there was finally some sunshine in camp. Maura explained that it was her first time in a hammock and she was a little bit too used to the luxury of the other cabin. Oti said she'd be happy to give Reverend Jones her bed, and when else is she able to sleep in a hammock, presuming she obviously doesn't sleep in a hammock outside of the jungle. Colleen was speaking about a time where her and Wayne went to go and meet Donald Trump, and Donald Trump said to Wayne that all of the good footballers get the good looking girls. And Alan obviously explained that finally at least there was 2 people going on trial, doing the trial together. Dean and Colleen, they were the 2 that were nominated to do the latest trial. Colleen said to Dean, we'll do our best and we'll try absolutely everything. The trial involved one of them being locked in a ute, which is obviously just like a big car, like a Jeep, and there were stars, and they were kind of like in the back of the car, like in a locked out little room, and the other campmate had to look for tools kind of in the car, outside of the car, outside in boxes, in crates, in order for that other campmate to get the stars out of the where they were locked into. So it was Dean that was in and around the car, so he was kind of jumping around trying to find all the different tools, and Colleen was obviously kind of strapped in on her back in this thing, in like a dark space with stars on the wall, but obviously she couldn't get them off until Dean got the right tool for her to get them off. Colleen basically said to him that he had to be in this, he had to be 100% there and present. He said he was looking for tools in the offal. Colleen was kind of covered with rats and cockroaches, shouting at Dean saying, come on Dean, hurry up. And then finally, through the middle of the challenge, Dean had to actually get in the Jeep, close the door, covered in offal, covered in like black tar and fish guts, which was obviously his worst nightmare from one of his previous trials. In the end, they managed to get 9 out of the 12 stars, just purely for the fact that they run out of time. And a lot of the things that he was kind of like picking down weren't tools, they were just bits of tar, bits of offal. So yeah, he managed to get 9 out of 12, which was again not too bad for someone who's kind of scared of everything. But again, he was very vocal. I think Colleen had a few little shrieks here and there, but she was absolutely fine. And Dean basically said to Colleen that the 2 of them should go back and pretend that they didn't actually win any stars, saying that obviously it's quite naughty, but you know, they're going to have a semi-decent dinner on that night. We then found out the next trial was going to be called Jack and the Scream Stalk. Reverend Richard and Talisa were ruled out for medical reasons. So that kind of just involved something to do with heights, and that's kind of all we were told about that so far. Maura was talking to Danny and Jane about her life growing up. She said that she quit school, she wanted to go into hairdressing, and before Love Island, she was a ring girl for boxing matches. She had a boyfriend before going on Love Island, and she ended up searching that guy's phone and finding out that obviously he was kind of talking to other people. And she said she wasn't sure whether she should or shouldn't turn down Love Island. She thought, actually, you know what, this person's treating me a certain way, I'm actually going to go on the show and kind of get my revenge, and that's exactly what she did. And Jane replied to her saying, you are fierce, I love it. For Kev's Wheels on Deals, it was Oti and GK, and this was actually quite a funny little challenge. They basically had to drive these little mini remote cars from where they were driven out to the right shop. They obviously had to be blindfolded and the other person was directing them left, right, forward, back. But the cars were so tiny, and yeah, obviously they were blindfolded and they were going along this tiny little track. But it was really, really smart, it was really clever. So obviously GK obviously read out the rules, basically worked out that the registration plates give you clues for the right place. So for example, one of the cars had 2M8OS, which kind of stood for tomatoes, so they knew that for that particular car they needed to drive to the grocery. They had CUR4TUN, which kind of stood for curtain, so she kind of thought like curtains are us, something to do with curtains. Oti said potentially fortune, GKC or fortune, so they went to the fortune teller shop and so on. So you had 10SEN1, which was tennis, XMNIZ, which was examine, or eyes, which eventually GK managed to get, so opticians. CME, B4DK, decay, great something to do with the dental clinic, and yeah, they managed to pass that. The question for the campmates back in the normal camp, which of these dances is not originated from South America? The samba, the tango, or the cha-cha-cha? They said cha-cha-cha, and they were correct. So Melvin was guessing that they were going to bring back crisps. Colleen said she was hoping they'd bring back jelly babies. And then Melvin came into the camp and announced that there would be 2 new leaders. So the two new leaders were Barry and Danny. Talisa said all good things come to an end, and she explained that if she heard musical theatre songs at 6 o'clock in the morning, she would scream. So it was up to Barry and Danny to decide the new duties for the other campmates, as obviously taken over. And they decided in the end, after much deliberation, because I think Barry obviously kind of went towards more of the men doing the heavier tasks or the more difficult tasks. And Danny did jump in and say, well, hold up. Do you want to try and make it a little bit more fair? Kind of, you know, put some of the women on other tasks, for example, like the wood and the water and things like that. And he said, I'm open to it, but it's better to put them on something else than potentially them have like struggle with the difficult tasks, which I completely understand. But then I would have said have one strong person and one not so strong person, so at least they're kind of equaling each other out. In the end, they decided for Jane and Talisa to do washing up, Colleen and Maura to do camp maintenance, which obviously included cleaning the dunny, Oti and Richard as the chefs, Alan and GK on wood, and then Melvin and Dean on water. And Jane basically said, they gave me the one job that I didn't want, because I think she'd been kind of doing the cleaning. She basically did a bit of everything in the first week, and she basically was just like, I want a bit of an easier task. But she ended up getting something that she didn't want. For dinner, the campmates had possum, which Oti said looked like chicken. And GK said it seemed like Danny and Barry don't look happy to be the leaders, with Danny saying he doesn't like upsetting people, obviously after Jane's little outburst there. Dean said that obviously Talisa tried to ban him from singing. That's absolutely not going to happen. And Barry explained to Danny that he's going to find it difficult not to be able to do things around the camp and, you know, be able to help people. For the next task, which was obviously called Jack and the Screamstalk, we found out it was either Maura or Dean. In the end, the public had voted for Dean to do the challenge, with Maura saying it sounded awful, Talisa saying it doesn't seem critter related, Jane saying it might be something to do with heights, and Talisa said that she knows it's something to do with heights because obviously she's medically exempt from that particular challenge. So that's all that happened in episode 8. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Is That More Brandon. So in today's video, I'm going to be doing a review to episode 9 of I'm a Celebrity Get Me Out of Here 2024. At the beginning of the programme, we found out it was Maura's 34th birthday, so Jane wished her a happy birthday, weird birthday to have. GK said hopefully they'll be getting a bit of cake for her birthday. And Danny basically explained to Barry that the food wasn't great last night, with Danny saying that the chefs are here to learn and they will get better. Barry and Oti basically came to the conclusion that Talisa was still in her dreams, so they tried to wake her up nicely. Dean, on the other hand, decided to start singing Good Morning, and Maura explained that Talisa was kind of singing a prayer as Talisa woke up and she saw that in front of her face. And then Jane explained that if she was to get on with something, she'd be able to get rid of it. Like get on with the task. So I think she was kind of either aiming it towards Dean or someone else, basically just saying, you know, get on with your tasks and you can just be done with it. And Maura explained that she had a cold shower and she actually emptied one's toilet issue. Dean said he's getting better and better. He wanted to give somebody else a go at the challenge, and Jane said that if she could, she would switch with him. GK said that people should be voting Jane to do a trial, and Dean said he was Jack in Jack and the Beanstalk Panto with Chico, but I don't know how that's going to help him in this particular challenge. Now for this trial, Anton Deck obviously introduced Dean to the situation, and I think it was a really, really good trial. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm going to tell you exactly what happened, but I think it was a really, really good trial. Deck basically said there'll be some surprises along the way, and Dean needed to hold on tight. So all he needed to do was climb up this beanstalk, i.e. a ladder. There'll be 4 or 5 or 6 different boxes that he had to put his hand into and grab the star. Obviously he couldn't see what he was putting his hands into, and then yeah, kind of just twizzling it out and just getting it into his bag. So in the first box was green ants, second box was cockroaches, third box was mealworms, and the fourth box was spiders. For box number 5, he had to make an egg. He had to just get the shapes together and make an egg. Boxes 6 to 12 were on this kind of moving, floating castle. So he had to kind of jump on this thing that was floating in the air, like a stage or like a windowsill, but just floating. And he had to kind of climb around all the different numbers in the number order, as if you're doing like an advent calendar. And he managed to get 10 out of 12 stars in the end. He said he was knackered when he got to star number 3. But yeah, it was a very treacherous and difficult thing because he was obviously starting down here. And as he was on like 8, 9, 10, he was having to go up higher. So you're not only in the air, but you're also having to climb in while you're in the air. It was just a little bit too much. And the whole thing was kind of like moving backwards and forwards. So it was a little bit much for him. GK back at camp was saying, what is the point of worms? With Danny and Alan making a load of bee jokes, and Maura saying, nah, these dad jokes are not funny. Oti asked Danny what his favourite McFly song was, and she explained that she liked the rumba, so the slow dancing. So I think they had a little dance. I think she was kind of showing him how to dance and walk properly. GK was having a chat with Reverend Richard, asking whether he found it difficult being a reverend and also being gay, adding that he's her favourite person in the jungle. She was talking to him about sizzling and scissors, with Reverend saying that obviously there's a lot of decades apart between himself and Grace, but they get on so well, and obviously they seem to quite have a lot in common. For the next Deals on Wheels, it was Melvin and Talisa. So they had to basically search for a treat. So they were both in this little water pond with loads of ducks that all looked different hair, sunglasses, some with lips, some with a hat, whatever. And they basically had to fill out this duck equation, which was so many of each duck equaled prize. And yeah, Talisa said that she was intelligent. Melvin said she was very smart, and that she could be an astronaut or a maths teacher. And yeah, basically they had to count in quick succession. So this many red ducks, this many yellow ones, this many with lips, whatever. And then actually in their head, actually manually add all those numbers up. So she managed to do it like that. It was like Carol Vorderman on TV. And the question for the campmates was how many of the campmates that have had a top 10, if you add all of them together, how many would there be as a total? 25, 26, 27. The answer was 27 and they were correct. And they managed to get ready salted crisps, which was brought back to camp. GK said that she can get on board with a Pringle. Talisa explained that dinner was early, and Maura said, imagine if it was pasta and bolognese. For dinner they had ostrich egg and kiwi. And Danny said that this, obviously, the biggest box of chicken nuggets that you could get was obviously at McDonald's, and he said that he could probably eat 3 of those boxes right now. Maura explained to Reverend Richard that she was so hungry, saying that she could eat him, and Colleen explained that this ostrich egg was their biggest meal yet. Dean said that they're eating and it's still really early. GK said that there may be some sort of music and birthday cake, potentially some sort of party, and Talisa said that they should only be doing something nice because obviously it's Maura's birthday. They were all explained too that they would have the chance to win treats, and they needed to go on a trip called the Fright Bus. They all had to take 1 ticket at a time, and that obviously determined what seat of the bus they were on. So, for example, Alan was in 3B, OT was 1C, meaning she was on the front row, Maura 4A, Barry 4B, so obviously the two of them were sitting next to each other, and Danny 3C as an example. Didn't really get to see where everyone else was sitting. And they basically, Alan said that he's going to try and win a treat, and obviously if he does manage to get one, he will get some for Maura on her birthday. And obviously there were cockroaches running around and they absolutely stink. So we found out that each of the rows of campmates on the bus, it determined how long they were on the bus for. So if they were on row 1 or 2, they'd be on the bus for not very long. 3 would be on there for a little bit longer, and row 4 would be on there a little bit longer. So on row 1 was GK, Jane and OT. On level 2 was Colleen, Reverend Richard and Dean. Row 3 was Alan, Danny and Melvin, and row 4 was Maura, Barry and Talisa. And we found that for the next trial, there'd be a fright at the end of the tunnel. There would be 2 campmates doing that particular challenge. So yeah, we'll see who's doing that challenge next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Is That More Brandon. So in today's video, I'm going to be doing a review to episode 10 of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here 2024. So at the beginning of the episode, we found out that obviously the 12 campmates were on this fright bus, and they kind of had to just endure a lot of torture from all these different insects and creepy crawlies in order to win stars. Maura said straight away if there was a spider on her, she would scream. Oti said she's never pressed a red button so quickly, and basically what they had to do is each row, so obviously the girls in the front, their first thing was a load of cockroaches and mealworms jumped on them. The person that was on the far right hand side had to move this kind of Pac-Man looking shape from one side, manoeuvring it across some pole and getting it to the other side. They had to do that 3 times, and then the person next to the red button would press the button to take a piece of luggage, and then they'd get off the bus. I'm presuming they took their own luggage because they know what bags they packed. But yeah, obviously Danny had a guitar, some of them had like handbags and backpacks and all sorts, so who knows what's in there, maybe more clothes, or maybe just a bag. So yeah, eventually row 1 got off the bus. Talisa was shouting, "Get away from me." And then you had Maura, Barry and Talisa that had green ants, who ended up at a stop called Green Ant Gardens, and they were just completely covered in green ants. And actually I felt really bad for Barry here, because he had Maura screaming on one side and Talisa screaming on the other side. I'm sure they're both really strong women, but I guess in that sort of environment when you're just stuck in a bus and you can't get out and there's things crawling, yeah, it's probably not the best place to be in. But yeah, I felt really bad for Barry because he was trying to cool them both down and also be composed himself. Jane said to GK, the fire is still on, so they were shocked that was still on from when they had left for the task. Oti saw a frog on her bag and she screamed. And yeah, they all received a bag of luggage from the bus. Dean said it kind of felt like it was the leftovers from a charity shop, and Jane said it was just a bag of shite. Oti got a glittery dress. Danny got his guitar. Alan had a Hawaii shirt. Dean, Oti and Barry were singing a song saying shine a light on her, and I think they were all kind of just, I think it was one of Danny's songs from McFly, but I think they were all just kind of singing it in their own way, and they didn't realise how good of a voice Barry actually has, with Reverend Richard saying Barry sings like a fairy. Melvin and Oti were sitting there having a chat with each other, and Oti said to him, are you okay? And he was like, well, no, I'm not okay. Melvin had a quick shower, and Oti said that obviously Melvin doesn't seem cool, calm and collected. Talisa and Barry did the washing up, and obviously Talisa was trying to find Barry because he actually walked a little bit too far in the forest, so he came walking back and she was kind of like calling out his name. So yeah, she just said, Barry, you've gone a little bit too far, this is the pond where we need to do the washing up. And we also found out that the next announcement of the next trial was going to be called Shock Around the Clock, with one person taking that on, with Ant and Dex saying, Dean, it's not you. And both Jane and Maura would be doing the previous trial, which was Fright at the end of the tunnel. So there was a lot of jumping forward and backwards of kind of, they're going to announce the next trial, but actually the two that are doing the trial that have already been announced is Jane and Maura. Maura said that she was glad she had Jane with her, and Jiki said that she knows Jane's going to smash it. Maura said that obviously Melvin, what she said to Melvin, that she wants to have a full belly tonight, with Maura saying to Jane that they're strong women and they can do this. What this challenge was for the two ladies is one of them was going to be above the ground, and they were going to have secret codes to find in different hell holes, and they had to give that code to the person under the ground by kind of shouting the 4-letter word out. That person below ground would be in the pitch black. They'll have to crawl from room to room to room, obviously underwater, and these little holes where you can kind of poke your head out and breathe. And then obviously, yeah, kind of one at a time. So word in the first hole, code in the first thing. This person moves across, the person above moves across, the person below moves across, and eventually they get to the end, and eventually they get up to 12 stars. So it was Maura who had decided to go above the ground, and it was Jane who was going to be doing the swimming under the water, with Jane saying it almost seemed like she was doing loose swimming, like a joke of loose swimming, which is quite smart. So for Maura, she obviously had to go through each of these different rooms, kind of not on her own. She was obviously joined by some things. So in the first room, she had toads, and the first code that she managed to find on the floor was tree. So she basically gave that code to Jane. Jane typed in the 4-letter word tree into this lock, which unlocked the star in the first room. So Maura's second room was lizards, and the words were fire and bird. And then I think she needed to get into a different room where I think there was like spiders in the way or something, and she basically was saying to them, you're in my way, like of the door. I think they kind of got a little bit mismatched here, because every so often Jane kind of skipped a few, or every other number. So I think the even ones were in little water areas, and then like the odd ones, they were easier to get for some reason. So every so often Jane would say, skip this one, move on to this one, or skip that one, or go back to that one, or actually I'm now back here. So kind of just, yeah, they were just working out a routine of which ones they needed to get, or which ones were easy to get. Again, Maura ended up having to face her massive fear of spiders. She opened the little curtain and she was like, no, I can't go in there. She went in, absolutely smashed it. Obviously they're more scared of her than she is of them. And the word was meal. And then she ended up in a room with pythons, mealworms, and I think she had like crabs in one of the rooms as well. And I think that's the room that they struggled in, because that was the room I think she only had like, what, a minute left or something, and by that point they already ran out of time. And then, yeah, one of the words where she was with the mealworm, she was trying to spell out the word boat, and Jane was like, S-O? And then Maura said, no, boat, A for ass. So it was just very funny how she was just, obviously Jane couldn't really hear properly because she's probably underwater. Maura, probably her accent was very strong for Jane to actually understand her. She was just screaming. So yeah, it just kind of was all going on there. But they managed to get 6 out of 12, which was a decent amount of stars. Danny also found a pair of red socks on the fire, which obviously belonged to Reverend Richard, so he accidentally had his socks burned. And Jane said to the campmates that she really enjoyed the challenge. Oti explained to Reverend Richard that she had to sing a church song, or some church songs, in order for her premature daughter. and it's the worst thing. It was the worst thing for her every night, having to leave her daughter in somebody else's hands. Reverend Richard also spoke about his ex-husband David, died of an alcohol problem. So I think this is when they kind of started to bond a little bit with kind of telling each other their personal life and personal stories. And you wouldn't really presume that a reverend is going to be as open and, you know, as caring and as, you know, loving as Reverend Richard was coming across. OT explained that vulnerability is also tough to show, but especially when you're supposed to be strong. And then after their difficult conversation, they had 2 mud crabs each for dinner. GK said, "Get that away from me," and Jane explained to the others that she was in a tank with 10 of those. Up for the next trial, which was obviously spin around the clock or shock around the clock, it was either Maura or Talisa. So I believe at this point this was Talisa's first trial since being in camp. So yeah, it was quite interesting to see kind of how she would have got on with the challenge. So yeah, that'll be coming in the next episode. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Is That More Brandon. So in today's video, I'm going to be doing a review to episode 11 of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here for 2024. So at the beginning of the show, we found out that at 4 AM there were rats running around the camp. The washing up needed to be done and not left overnight, as it would attract rats and snakes. That was the notice that the campmates received. So obviously Jane was on cleaning and washing up duty, along with whoever she was doing that with, Talisa. So obviously the both of them were kind of, you know, giving a little slap on the hand. But I guess at the same time, if they were tired, or if they, you know, just needed to just conk out for a few hours, they must have just forgotten. And Reverend Richard basically wanted to remind everyone, for people that weren't washing their stuff and putting their stuff away, they needed to put their stuff away in the green boxes. OT asked Melvin if he wanted to go for a swim, and he basically explained that he hadn't got time, because obviously he was running up and down camp trying to get the water, and also trying to motivate Dean to actually get involved with his chore as well. Yeah, he basically explained that it was another chore asking Dean to get water, because obviously Melvin was just up and down so ever many times in the morning, and either Dean was sleeping or doing something else or having a chat or having a shower, kind of just not really pulling his weight. Alan basically explained that after the fright bus, he wasn't surprised that obviously Talisa was picked for the trial, because obviously her screaming, and she explained that she was so cool for so long and then the public caught her. And J.K. said it's nice to see other people going through what her and Dean had gone through. God bless. Obviously someone different doing the trial. Maura said that she's happy she's not doing the trial. And yeah, basically what Talisa had to do was name 12 things per category. And obviously, as she was trying to answer those, not only was she covered with things, the clock would also move from 12 all the way back to 12. So she was kind of having to do it when her brain was going the wrong way, and also under pressure, and also locked in, where you've just got loads of things falling on you. She also said to Anton Deck that she was afraid of funfair rides as well, not only the things and crawlies and stuff, but also the actual rides themselves. So some of the things that she had to endure were cockroaches and crickets, and some of the topics included naming all of her campmates, who she remembered all of apart from Jane, and I think it was Melvin that she forgot. The 12 months of the year, 12 UK cities, periodic elements, which she said she didn't know any, and she actually got a bit of a hint from Anton Deck, so they kind of helped her, but she still didn't manage to get those. 12 gifts in the Christmas Carol, US states, 12 organs, countries in Europe, UK football teams, and 12 kings and queens of England. That was probably my favourite one, because it was literally just James the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, George the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, Henry the 1st, 2nd, 3rd. Obviously you have Henry the 8th, so you've got to presume that there were 7 Henrys before. So it was just literally Elizabeth, whatever, and Henry all the way to the end. So that was great. So in the end she got 5 out of 12 stars, which wasn't awful. It was under halfway, but I think, like even she said, it was just so difficult, because out of that situation, she could easily just name 12 months of the year. In that situation, she still managed to do it, but it's just the thing of your brain obviously works a little bit different. And yeah, Talisa basically explained that she was disappointed in herself and it wasn't good enough. And Alan asked Melvin whether he was into dating, with Melvin saying that he thinks it's better to be in a relationship and actually have someone that you care for, rather than just talking to people and it just not really going anywhere. We also found out that after the previous trial, the next trial was going to be called Head to Head Rank Bank. Well, it's called Rank Bank, but there was 3 of them that were going to be going head to head. And Melvin explained that Dean seems to be very good at disappearing, and with 2 buckets that they can clear out the dunny, with OT saying welcome to our world, because obviously I think she was doing the cleaning up before. This is when Dean kind of tried to stick up for himself, saying that he's done the washing up for 5 days, and Jane said that she got wood and worked for about 1 day straight, with Dean saying that Jane hasn't even done anything other than 1 trial and just slept, with Jane saying, no, I haven't actually had any sleep. And then Melvin basically called Dean Houdini, because obviously he likes to disappear. GK and Reverend Richard were talking again, where she asked him whether he wished he could go to his own funeral, so you can obviously see what people are thinking about you. And she said that if she was to have her funeral, she would want the song Staying Alive, and obviously Let It Burn playing when obviously she was taken out of the hall. Reverend Richard also explained that he was actually knocked out by a tramp when his dog accidentally ate a homeless person's sandwich. Danny said he was missing his kids and grandkids at home. Alan basically spoke about his lines in Coronation Street, that he had to learn his lines in a short amount of time. For example, if he was given so many scenes on a Wednesday, he'd have to learn them by the Thursday or Thursday morning or Friday, because you don't know how many he's got the following day to learn for the following week. So it's just a constant thing of learning lines. And Colleen said there was a lot of pressure on Wayne, especially now he's a football manager as opposed to just a footballer. For dinner, the campmates got wallaby rump, with GK explaining that the wallaby's legs were in the air, almost like her at university. Talisa said that she hopes there's enough food for everyone. Dean, Reverend, Danny and Oti were all singing church songs. And then we found out for the head-to-head trial, it was going to be Danny, Dean and Alan taking part in that. They were all just obviously unaware that there was some sort of head-to-head. They just found out that for the next trial, those were the 3 that were going to be doing the trial. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Is That More Brandon. So in today's video, I'm going to be doing a review to the 12th episode of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here 2024. So we've just found out that Danny, Dean and Alan are going to be taking part in the next head-to-head challenge. But obviously, we found out that Reverend Richard and Jane were to wake up GK because they needed to get some small logs for the fire. So I think Jane at this point had got some big logs, but I think they needed a lot of little logs because some of them had either got wet or they kind of run out of wood. So they basically managed to wake her up slowly and quietly. GK said that her and Melvin and the chefs are up there in terms of people that are putting the most into the camp. And Maura explained that she's got a lot of energy. We're not getting as much food, but it'll be nice for people to actually be happy. So obviously people getting stars, people being happy, people being, you know, motivated to actually do things. Melvin explained that he's done 4 water trips so far in that morning. With Danny and Barry saying, oh look, he's on another trip, like he's, you know, off again getting water. And Melvin said that Dean doesn't like to be told what to do, and he's just having a shower and brushing his teeth when Melvin's actually working really, really hard to get the water. Again, with this head-to-head, GK basically was going to ask, she asked exactly how is it going to work, with Colleen saying they're obviously going to be going against each other, potentially being put into teams, and she'll be curious to see how the trial actually works. So all 12 of them went to go and see Ant and Dec, and Ant and Dec basically said that they're now going to have to start paying for their everyday essentials, things that they have just had, so their water, their food, their toilet trips, their showers, things like that, and they'll be able to pay for these things with a Jungle Cash card. So Dean was on Team Pink, Alan was on Team Blue, Danny was on Team Orange, and each of the other campmates had to just pick their name out of a hat to see what colour team they were in. So for the Pink team, you had Colleen, Jane and Melvin. So obviously Dean and Melvin are on the same team, and you've got to see that there's some sort of water friction there. Jane was also doing wood, so yeah, interesting team there. For the blue team, you had Alan, Barry, Talisa and Reverend Richard. So Talisa, the only female on that team, but she's a female boss. So again, very interesting team. And then Danny had the 3 ladies. So it was Danny, Maura, Oti and GK. So again, Maura, very strong. GK, a bit of a screamer, but she's all right. Oti, very strong. Danny just gets on with it. So I think all teams had their pros and cons. Obviously, Danny had all 3 girls. So again, maybe you needed a bit more muscle power or whatever. But again, the others are quite strong. The blue team was kind of like mixed. Talisa was the only girl. But again, Reverend Richard was decent. Barry wasn't really that helpful. And then you had like Dean, Colleen, Jane and Melvin. Again, Jane had only done 1 trial at this point. Dean was a screamer. So a bit of a mixed bag of teams. But I think, yeah, quite decent to be fair. And what they were advised by Ant and Dec is that there were going to be 4 races, and for each race, first race being for obviously Dean, Alan and Danny, the quicker that they complete, the quicker that they win prizes and money. First place would get £300 or dollars, second place would get 200, third place would get 100, and obviously that would be added onto their cash card to be spent on things later on. The first little mini game was to stick their head in a box of raw pig testicles, only using their mouth in order to get it out of the box. So there was loads of them just sitting in there like little chicken fillets, and they had to just get them all out of the box. Instead of using their hand, they had to use their mouth. Danny came first, Alan came second. Dean said that it was absolutely minging and he didn't get any points in that round. Second mini round was for all of them to remove 3 coins and put them into the coin box. It was a box of fish guts, so it was all just like red and pink. Alan came first that time, Dean surprisingly came second, and Danny managed to get the coin, but he was 5 seconds too late. The third mini game for the 3 boys was to squeeze juice out of fish eyes into a cup, again only using their mouth. So they had to get the eye in their mouth, pop it, pour the juice into like a funnel, and also drop the eye in, because I guess that's extra juice. But I guess one of them kept, I think Danny just kept chucking the eyeball on the floor, so there was extra juice coming out, but not where it needed to be. Alan came first again, Dean came first again, and again Danny ran out of time. So as of now, both Danny and Dean had $500 in their pot. Alan had 1,100, and Talisa saying it was lucky number 11. Danny explained he is girl power, and they basically found out there would be €10 to use the toilet, to get wood, to get water, to shower or to bath, and at some point there'd be some automated treat machine. GK said everyone seemed to be hard working in the camp apart from Dean, and Maura said she doesn't want to pay to go to the toilet. The celebrities also had to choose 2 campmates for the trial, and the public would also have the vote to save their favourite celebrities in order from being evicted from the challenge. Danny, Alan and Dean were all having a bloke's shower together. GK and Maura were both off to the toilet together. Maura had basically spoken to Jane asking whether the black bag that she was being given was rubbish. And OT kind of was a little bit confused as to where the lunch dinner went, with Danny asking OT whether they're going to actually have to buy dinner. He said to OT, obviously, that they're both on the same team, that he only needs to shower when he's done a trial. So if he's not doing a trial, he doesn't need to spend money on that. OT said everyone has their little dip. She said obviously her family aren't here with her at the moment, and Talisa said that her jungle family are here. Oti said that she's in the jungle for her daughter, she has to be strong, with Alan saying, last but not least, we all love you. Jane explained the treat machine was now going to be open, and both Danny, Dean and Alan were all going down to investigate, with GK saying to her leader she doesn't like crisps, Colleen asking for a bottle of vodka, and for Dean, Danny and Alan to find out that it was going to be costing them, for 12 stars in total, it would be 100 stars each, so that's 1,200 euros. Alan suggested they didn't buy the 12 stars, they needed to decide how many they were buying as a team. So Alan bought 4 stars, Danny bought 2 stars, and Dean bought 2 stars, so that was 8 out of 12. So again, a respectable meal, not 12 out of 12, but an 8 out of 12 meal, so kind of enough food for all of them. Jane, Maura and Reverend Richard were then also sent on to the next trial, which was called telephone banking, and they were basically having to listen to a voice note or like a hold music, which told like some sort of story with characters and, you know, places and whatever, and they had to answer questions, and for each correct answer they get $200 added to their money pot. So I think at this point all of the contestants, all of the campmates were able to win money individually for their team by doing all these little mini games and challenges. So yeah, Maura said it wasn't easy. Jane said that there seemed to be a lot of stuff on her head, and at the end of the challenge, so Jane had 400 points added, Reverend Richard and Maura both had 600 added, and Maura said, I'm good, I'm good. Again, each of the 3 of them were offered something from the machine. So for Jane, it was, do you want 3 chocolate muffins for 100 euros each? She said, yeah. Maura was like, would you like 2 chocolate caramels for 100 each? She said, yeah, give it to me. And with Reverend Richard, he was offered 3 crackers and cheeses for 100 euros each, and he said, yeah, go on then. So at the end of that, the pink team only had 520, the orange team had 730, and the blue team was still on 1,110. GK explained that they were about to make their total 720, so obviously taking off 10, because she needed to go to the toilet. And Talisa explained to OT that this is her first TV show since being on The X Factor 10 years ago, saying that she's even been in the situation of being honey trapped, which is basically girls who make up their undercover journalists, or girls who go undercover and are journalists, in order to make stories about famous people, celebrities, influencers, whatever, to kind of just get a story out of people. For dinner, they had buffalo chuck, with Dean saying that they should cut it into 12 pieces, and they can all have their own individual steaks. I think in the end they were going to have 11 pieces, because I think somebody on the in the camp was vegetarian, so they weren't able to eat the steak. Colleen explained that she wasn't really sure what to expect tomorrow, and again we found out for the Tank of Terror another 2 campmates were going to be taking part in this challenge. Again, this is where the campmates were able to discuss this themselves. Jane said it sounded like underwater. Maura said that she didn't want to do it. I think in the end they chose Oti and Barry, and they were also explained too that this was their last supper together, with one celebrity leaving the jungle tomorrow night. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Is That More Brandon. So in today's video, I'm going to be doing a review for episode 13 of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here 2024. So this was Friday's episode, and we found out that in Friday's episode, one of the campmates was going to be eliminated from the show. So Jane said that her team was on the lowest amount of money, they needed to save money. Jane explained to Maura that this is her at her best. If she gets a husband, he will appreciate her for herself. And Melvin suggested that if somebody needed the toilet, they should just take the bucket with them, fill it up with water, and then bring it back to camp. So instead of it just being him backwards and forwards all the time, if they go in that way, just grab some water and then just bring it back. GK and Alan discussed that all of the wood that they had was wet, so they needed to dry it from the fire or go and get some extra. And Melvin discussed with Barry, saying that he felt like he should go and help him, you know, because obviously, well, he should help Barry by taking on this challenge because he's the only one that hasn't done a trial. So he basically said, Barry, you know what, I feel like I'm going to take on this challenge. So it ended up being Oti and Melvin. GK said that as a duo, she doesn't think they're going to do very well, but it will be quite entertaining to watch. And we found out for this trial that both Oti and Melvin were in a water tank. And again, I think this is probably one of the best trials of this season. So you had Oti on the left, Melvin on the right. They had a helmet, like a fish bowl on their head, and obviously their legs were just dangling in the water. And obviously they had things in both of their tanks, and they had to basically just move, well, Melvin had to move the stuff from his little water area along some sort of puzzle, pass it to Oti. She would have to do it across her puzzle, get it out, put it in her bag. So down there they had snakes, well, in their helmets they had snakes and spiders, and underneath with their legs they had yappies and lizards in the water. And yeah, so yeah, it was very difficult to watch because obviously you don't know how good or bad these people are going to be in the challenges, but just I think both of them literally within 10 seconds closed their eyes. They were like, don't tell us what you're putting in the helmets, don't tell us what's where, just literally trying to just feel with their hands. Oh, is this Melvin's hand? Okay, cool, and there's a star, cool, and get it out to the end. So I think once they did the first few stars, it was just incredible to watch. Like there was literally spiders crawling on their head, there were snakes crawling around their face, they had all sorts like wiggling around their like legs and their feet and stuff, and it was, I wouldn't do it, so props to both of them. And at the end, obviously they managed to get 12 out of 12 stars. Oti was quite cocky or quite overconfident, and right at the end she goes, I'm gonna need you guys to count that out for me. So every so often she was like 1, 2, so she was counting to 12 but just being quite funny. And then back at camp, Maura asked whether mealworms laid eggs. Melvin basically explained to the campmates that the water was going absolutely everywhere. And yeah, Oti basically said it was Dean, because I think he was trying to bring water back and he kind of was just spilling it all over the place, with Melvin going, well, he's going to have to go and fetch some more water. And Oti basically said that she wanted to get the job done in terms of the trial, so she wanted to make everybody proud. Colleen explained to Oti and GK about her kids' names, that they all begin with the letter K, and I think her youngest begins with the letter C in order to kind of match her name, because there's at least be another C Rooney as part of their family. And GK basically said that it seems like massive celebrities are just normal people, and she said she definitely want to meet Wayne next, potentially get herself invited around for dinner and tea. Alan said that Prince Charles had actually come to the Coronation Street set when they were filming it, a live episode. And Reverend Richard also discussed about the late Queen being unable to use stairs, so she was in the lift. She ended up going down to the service floor with some random cleaner who was like, move out of the way. She obviously didn't realise that, you know, Royal Majesty was standing there. She ended up getting an invite for a cup of tea and, you know, dinner and whatever at the palace. So that obviously made that woman's day. Alan, Reverend and Dean, again, were all speaking about the royals. And Maura said to Danny that he spent all of his money. And she was basically saying that she was worried that it was going to get to a point where she was going to end up, or her team was going to end up all spending their money, and that they wouldn't be able to buy XYZ luxury. So I think she was very smart here, because she was like, hang on, there must be a reason we're saving all this money up. Like, we actually need the money to buy something, so I'm not going to use it on going to the toilet or, you know, having a bath or whatever. I'd rather do less of that, have more money to play with as a team, and then, you know, see what we can get. So Yeah, she was very smart there. And then there was some sort of leaderboard of how many tokens or how much money each of the teams had. So at this point, pink had 370, orange had 640, and in the lead still was blue with 990. And they had one more challenge in order to win money, with the winning team having first choice of what they were going to spend the money on. So the only people that hadn't taken part in the challenges were Colleen and Melvin, Talisa and Barry, OT and GK. So they were the 6 that obviously were able to take part in this challenge. Danny said that pain is temporary, and Colleen said that at the moment her team has lost and they needed to change that. So this game was called the Piggy Bank. So each piggy was worth 250 points or 250 pounds or whatever, and they basically were in their pairs. All it was they were standing, they had loads of stuff falling on them, and there was like a cage above. They had their colour team's coin plonked to the top right hand side, and they just had to move it like a little game from one corner to the other corner, let it drop, put it in their stand, and obviously for each round, the team that won, the other 2 teams would lose a piggy. So if you lost every single round, you would lose all 3 of your piggies. If you won 2 rounds and lost 1, you'd lose 1 piggy, but you'd still have 2 wins. So yeah, Colleen and Melvin basically explained that they were both quite short. Talisa said that obviously her team are a little leg up already. The first pig was won by the blue team, the second one was won by the orange team, and the third one was won by the orange team. So the orange team actually came out a little bit stronger there, but they still didn't win. So the pink team ended up on 620, the orange team ended up on 1,390, and the blue team were on 1,490. So it was the blue team that were able to decide what things they were going to spend their money on first. Orange would be the next team to go, and then obviously pink would kind of just be left with whatever was left. So for the blue team, they decided that they wanted to get 2 of the 500 ones, 1 of the 300 ones, and 1 of the 100 ones. So then they ended up getting some chocolate, crumpets with butter and jam, 4 double chocolate biscuits, and obviously the sports results, which was obviously for Barry. For the orange team, they got salt and pepper sachets, clothes, 4 glasses of squash, salted popcorn and biscuits. That was more kind of decided by Grace. So she kind of hinted, well actually, these are kind of the best of the worst options, obviously clothes is important. And then for the pink team, they were kind of just left with whatever they could afford. So for 600, they got a 300 fruit platter and a 300 bag of sweets. So they still were able to get something, just not the most. When GK went back, she said she wasn't jealous about the crumpets. And Colleen, obviously her and Melvin, she just shouted, "Here come the paupers," because obviously her and Melvin were obviously the lowest and they only got the little leftovers. Dean explained to Reverend Richard that he needed to ride the sugar train, because I think he ended up getting the giggles and he got a little bit, not emotional, but a little bit giddy. So Dean was basically just like, you know, just jump on the train, and Reverend Richard was like, "I just need to go and sit down." Danny said to Jane and Dean said to Jane and Danny that he should eat the crumpets or hide them somewhere, with Jane saying, well, that's actually their fault for leaving them unattended. Alan just said to Dean, "Are you okay?" And he kind of knew something had happened with the crumpets. And Talisa jumped in and said, you know, if you've, you know, taken, if you mess around, you've got smoke with me when it comes to food. I don't do this to anyone. And for dinner, they had octopus, maize, canistel for dessert. Melvin explained that he doesn't like octopus unless it's crispy calamari. And Alan said that for Talisa, if she doesn't like it, there's always half a crumpet left. And obviously, he ended up getting the giggles and she did a little fake laugh because obviously they only had half the crumpet because the other 2 had been stolen. And the campmates were also explained too that this was their final night as a group of 12 having their final dinner. They all kind of discussed their reasons for being there and kind of just summarised their time so far. Oti said it was scary to meet strangers and obviously she loves everyone. Colleen said that she was initially scared of Jane when she first came in, and Dean was also very overwhelmed, but she's got to learn everyone. Reverend Richard said he's learnt about scissoring and obviously being heavenly in an environment where we're all just nice people. Talisa said that she was terrified and she just forgot about the things that scared her. Alan said he's had the time of his life. Jane said that if it's her that goes, she'll take these people as her friends in the moment. Barry explained that it was a lovely bunch of people. Danny said he was scared to do the speech and also scared to do the show, but it was an uplifting experience and he's found a dad in Barry. Maura said that she loves all of them, she was petrified and everyone made her believe that she was strong. Melvin said he wouldn't have been able to get through this without anybody else. GK said that she was made to feel rallied and it changed how she saw herself, and it would definitely change her on the outside. Dean said he's also learnt a lot about himself and he can get along with everybody else, and that obviously everyone is very efficient. And he also admitted to stealing the crumpets, which Talisa was like, you know what, I was quite angry earlier, but yeah, I would have toasted him myself, but now the fact that he's revealed that, I'm a little bit happier. And in the end, we found out from the first public vote it was either going to be Dean or Jane who were going to be first leaving the jungle, and we found out that Jane was the first person who was going to be leaving the jungle. So Jane basically said hard work does not get rewarded. She managed 14 days in camp. She did a skydive. She was in a paddling pool with crocodiles and eels, and she also boarded the fright bus. And then she came to Anton Deck to have a little chat with them. She said it was a weird and magical experience, not the best experience with the rain, but all of the people in there were wonderful people, and she now obviously doesn't have to do any washing up. She said that the thing that she enjoyed the most was getting to know everybody else and knowing that everybody had everyone's back. She also, as a journalist, is known for asking lots of questions, and she was asking lots of questions for people. So she obviously explained the downtime in there is quite long when you're not doing a challenge or a trial, so she was just trying to fill the time by just, you know, creating conversation. She said that in terms of the washing up, obviously she was doing the logs, the fire, the dunny on her own. Dean was always obviously on trials, so she was supposed to be paired with him, but obviously he was never there and no one else is able to do the tasks. She said that obviously now there's going to be less of them in the camp. People need to stick to their roles and pull their weight, because obviously it will be apparent who's not doing as much. She said that the underwater challenge was very, very tough. She couldn't see, and she even bashed her head, but she still managed to get through. And in terms of who she wanted to see win, she said she wanted to see the people that were quiet and the people that were hardworking. So people like Melvin and Colleen, who just obviously kept everything going. So yeah, it was a very emotional first eviction episode. And obviously Jane managed to go and see her daughter Grace, who was waiting for her at the end of the walkway. And she said, "Mum, you absolutely stink." And she goes, "Yeah, no, I know I stink." So yeah, it was a very funny experience kind of seeing that. But yeah, like I said, I do feel really sorry for Jane that she was the first one out, because she did work really hard and she was kind of doing everything. But I guess at the same time, being that motherly figure, being that, you know, being everywhere, still doesn't get people to vote you. And again, I don't know what swayed people to vote her out as opposed to somebody else. It's like, yeah, we'll never know. That's the thing with these public shows. You always rely on the public. Most of the time they make the right decision, but yeah, it's a bit of a difficult one with Jane, because I think she worked really hard, but yeah, she didn't get rewarded for that. But she still came out really well, and she's had a bit more of a platform, so I guess that's kind of, you know, all you can ask for. So anyway, congratulations to Jane. She did manage 14 days, which is still amazing, but yeah, she's the first campmate out of I'm a Celeb. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Is That More Brandon. So in today's video, I'm going to be doing a review to the 14th episode of I'm a Celebrity Get Me Out of Here 2024. So at this point, we found out that Jane is obviously the first campmate to leave I'm a Celebrity. So we have 11 campmates left. Maura explained that she slept in the rain, her bed is soaking. And obviously this was before Jane had left, so OT had come to the conclusion that someone was going to be leaving the jungle, and it doesn't obviously make the situation easy. Jane said she's put her all into the situation. She would like to stay a little bit longer. And Dean said that he's prepared himself to be going, thinking that he may be going first. Maura said to Jane that she's always encouraged people and pep talked her. And GK said that Jane was the glue that had held the camp together, with Talisa asking who's going to be doing the washing up with her. And I think this was just after Anton Deck had revealed that she had been evicted from the jungle. Up next was the next trial. This was called Jungle TV Dinners, and this was for 2 campmates to do. It was Reverend Richard and Talisa, who I believe had put themselves forward, with Talisa saying she wanted to try and get more stars. Anton Deck were flicking through different TV shows, obviously with slightly alternative names, and they had to then eat a dish that kind of was in reference to that television show. So for example, the first show was called Reeky Blinders, aka Peaky Blinders. So Reeky, potentially something to do with fish. So Richard had to eat fermented mudfish, 2 spoonfuls of that. Up next was Made in Hellsea. Talisa had to have a fermented duck egg with a little jumper. She didn't use the jumper to eat, she just used it to kind of wipe her mouth, which was quite cute. You had Down Tongue Abbey, which Richard had to eat a bull's tongue. Britain's Snot Talent, Talisa had to eat a cow's nose. Dancing on Mice, Richard had to eat 4 mice feet and 2 mice tails, with Talisa saying that that is bad. Anton Deck Limitless Limbs, Talisa had to eat 2 whole spiders, and she explained that it popped, there was juices, and it was also creamy, so probably not the best thing to eat. Love Island, Richard had to eat a large fisheye. The Bardashians, Talisa had to have a sheep's testicle. Line of Booty, Richard obviously had to eat bum. Gogglecocks, Talisa had to have a goat's penis. Married at First Fright, with both of them having to have camels in between their legs, vagina. And finally, Talisa explained she got a full house of stars. She believes she's redeemed herself. So yeah, it was an eating trial. So it was a very much backwards and forwards, anti-deck flicking program. They would alternate from what they were going to eat, and they managed to do their final one together. I think Reverend Richard took the lead on the final one, and she kind of looked over and was just like, actually, you know what, I'm just going to do it. GK said to Alan that he's going to have all of the women flocking at him after the show. Maura said she wasn't sure if she would have done that eating challenge herself, with obviously Talisa explaining to GK that the legs of the spiders were kind of like flicking around with the cream. Oti then began massaging Colleen, massaging her legs with Alan's golf club. She potentially said that she wanted another child and eventually would have to give up dancing for her children. And Colleen said that everyone's got an opinion. She knows that a lot of women have said that working is a lot easier than being a housewife, and actually being a housewife is a lot more difficult. And again, for the third time, we found out that there were going to be new leaders in camp. Oti said to Danny that she said that Danny walks weird, Colleen adding like a duck, and GK said to Oti that her and the other campmates were going to be involved in the Oti Mabuse catwalk. Dean said that Colleen looked good and it almost looked like Danny had soiled his pants. Oti gave 10 out of 10 for effort and everyone for turning up on time. And there was obviously a secret ballot for new campmates, leaders, with Danny and Barry, who were not able to be reflected or re-elected, and the campmates were not able to discuss. The people that were chosen to be camp leaders were Oti and Reverend Richard, with Colleen saying that she can't cook. So in terms of the duties, Colleen and Dean were on wood, Maura and Barry were on washing up, Talisa and GK were on cooking or camp chefs, Melvin and Danny on maintenance, Alan and Danny on water. Because there was an odd amount of people and an equal amount of tasks, one person had to do 2 tasks, so Danny was on maintenance and water. And he said he hopes it's not too much for him and he hopes he gets fed well. Colleen was talking to Oti and Dean, saying that they have a few bars in their house and a posh bar outside the dining room. Oti said she would love a fish pond in her house, and Colleen said that they've also got 2 lakes and a football pitch with an underground tunnel. So it seems like Colleen doesn't have a house, she has like a mansion, because she's got 3 bars, a posh bar, a football pitch and 2 lakes. So that's quite a lot for just a house. But yeah, she basically explained that she doesn't really speak about the layout or the build of her house. She doesn't want to come across as boasting, she's just kind of talking about it as it is. And Dean also asked her whether the term wag had gone away, with Colleen saying no, the term is still there. I guess it's being used less and less and less, because it's not just this person is someone's girlfriend, it's this person is this person and they have their own traits and their own, you know, skills and knowledge and things like that. So it's not just someone's girlfriend, they are not just a piece of meat. They are someone's partner, wife, girlfriend, whatever, and they actually stand for their own things as well. So hopefully that term does go away, because it shouldn't just be this person's a footballer's wife, that's all they do. They probably work hard, they probably work just as hard as the person they're in the relationship with, if not harder, because they're obviously having to deal with the kids when the guys are away or whatever. So yeah, hopefully that term does go away, because I feel like it is kind of offensive, depending on obviously who you say it to. Some women are absolutely fine with it, I presume, but yeah, I'm presuming most are like, well, actually don't call me that, like I have my own loyalties and my own things to stick by. And then for dinner, these final 11 campmates had kangaroo tail, Barina, rainbow shard, and penantos. That's what Melvin had tried to pronounce. Again, not really 100% sure what any of that is, apart from the kangaroo. Obviously had GK on the cooking with Talisa, and Oti basically said that GK had kind of burnt the rice, but she'll be fine when she's directed. And GK explained that Talisa has the patience of a saint. So I think Talisa was kind of on main food prep and GK was kind of doing just like the vegetables and the salads and whatever. Somehow she managed to burn the rice and Talisa managed to kind of recover it and get them some sort of dinner. Oti also explained that obviously everyone had voted for Reverend Richard. She was the only one that didn't. And he basically said that he voted for himself. So he kind of giggled a little bit. And then Maura said that her one vote was from Richard, but it wasn't. Dean said this is the most rain he's seen, and Alan said that you've got to enjoy it, you've just got to make the most of the experience that you've got. So that was the end of episode 14, Saturday's episode. If you did enjoy, don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. If you did enjoy my weekly episode as well, don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. As that was the weekly review of episode 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 and 14. But until my next video, thank you for watching, and I will see you for week 3 very, very soon. Until then, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.